Hey everyone, it's Michael Goosebumps fan. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for, I guess it counts as a Goosebumps book. I've talked with some of you and told you I wanted to review this before I finished up the channel, finished up all the reviews for the final books I have out of like 11 or 10 books. I think it's 11 books left after this one. This is not like an R.L. Stine book. This is not an official Goosebumps book. This is like a fan project, a passion project, if you will, written by someone who also did an Are You Afraid of the Dark book companion thing. This is mainly tied to the TV series from the 90s, not the new Disney show that's supposed to be coming out this year. Maybe. Supposedly it's in production. I'll see it when I see it, if it happens. But anyway, this is tied to the original 90s series. It's about 215 pages long. It's Viewer Beware, the Goosebumps TV companion by Jose Prendez. And apparently that Are You Afraid of the Dark book came out before this one. I don't know how far before this, but apparently pre, like 2018, 2019, I don't know. Anyway, I love the SpongeBob font here. Looks just like it. When I saw this book when it first came in the mail, I was pretty stoked about it because of that font. You know, I love SpongeBob. Let me start with a few things that I want to cover before I get into my nitpicks. Jose Prendez, I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I don't know if he watches my content or not. In the back of the book, it seems like he's very involved in YouTube. He apparently is a big Goosebumps fan, but I don't know how much he is of the books compared to the actual show. A lot of this book, if not almost the entire book, aside from comments here or there about little factoids or in some of the interviews, he doesn't really reference the books, which is fine, not a big deal. You know, when I was a kid, I had some of the books, but I was more exclusively a Goosebumps TV show fan because of Dummy 3, Bride, Haunted Mask 1 and 2, some of the other small episodes I saw standalone-wise. They mostly had two-parters on DVDs, like How I Got My Shrunken Head, that kind of thing. That's where I saw a lot of my Goosebumps stuff, and I would say I was exclusively a Goosebumps fan for a long time, mainly focused on that, more than the dummy books I read, or like Bad Hair Day, I think I read once. Haunted Mask 1 and 2, maybe just 1, I think I read once. But that's just my point. Not a big deal if he only covers the TV show, mainly. This is a companion for that, as the cover says. There's a lot to cover with this book. I won't get too in-depth. I don't want to spoil too much for you guys. I have my complaints. I have my nitpicks about this book, and I don't want to be too brutal. Jose Prendez seems like a nice guy. He has a YouTube channel, by the way. I think it's Master Chaos, in case you'd like to check him out. I haven't checked any of his videos out yet. I actually went and put one in my file of things to listen to while I'm at work, or maybe watch at break time or something, just to see what his channel's like. I like to do that with pretty much anybody I check out for any kind of content that's related to Goosebumps. If they say, like, hey, I have a Goosebumps channel or whatever, I'll go check out some of their work. But apparently that's where he thrives, so that's kind of cool. Again, I think, according to the very last interview I'll get to later on, it seems like he's pretty tied into Goosebumps YouTube, at least with one particular big user who's not even a Goosebumps YouTuber really anymore. But anyway, that's probably a dead giveaway on who I'm talking about, but I'll get there. I'm not going to avoid this person's name or anything, no big deal, but anyway, what is this book? As a companion piece, it basically is filled with covering all 74 episodes of the original Goosebumps show. It covers everything, and it basically breaks up the two-parters as well. It's essentially, and this part is most of this book, over 100 pages of this 215-page book, almost like 140 of it, or 150 of it, are focused on, like I'll give you a format real quick. Let me just open it up for some sampling to prove a point. Alright, here we go. Say Cheese and Die. It starts off, it says, Episode 15, Say Cheese and Die, air date, written by, directed by, based on the Goosebumps book, guest cast, includes the different people like Ryan Gosling, favorite line, synopsis, and then the review, and then the series mythology, as in, like, little trivia things you could get from, like, IMDb or anywhere else. Some of the stuff I didn't know. Series mythology stuff is pretty cool. But the review thing takes up most of the space. Usually it can be like a page to 2 pages at maximum. Really short, that's good. I'm glad at least that portion's short, but a lot of this is just factoid collecting, which isn't a bad thing, but the series mythology is sometimes, typically, most of the time, out of the 74 entries of these different episodes, and this isn't a complaint to this particular writer. Jose Prendez isn't doing anything wrong with this, it's just me talking about the bang for your buck, essentially. Not to insult him. Jose, if you're watching this, I'm not trying to be rude about you, man. I really don't mean anything to come across too rude. I'm having a bad day. I'm a little bit in a bad mood anyway. But I want to be kind about this book review because I like a lot of the things I saw in here later on, post the reviews, you know, out of the first 150 pages. Most of this book are Jose Prendes reviewing episodes that I assume he is going back and either rewatching or watching for the first time with, I think he has 2 daughters, 2 kids in general. He's going back and watching these with his kids, but that's not really like the main focus. That's why I'm a little iffy on that. But basically, he's watching them with his kids, I guess, most of the time, and reviewing each episode, and every once in a while he'll make like a mention of like, my daughter said this, my daughter said that, my daughter noticed this, I didn't see it though. Let me tell you, I appreciate that part of it, but it's basically like, if I, let me put it like this. This is a fan-made book. It's very clear because there's a lot of typos in here. A lot of typos in here. There's a lot of formatting issues, you know, and to be like a self-published thing, that's gonna happen a lot of the time if you don't pick up an editor, and I've dealt with this with my own writing and my own projects. If you don't get an editor, you will be criticized. You know, I published a short story a while back, and some of you guys were really nice and really helped out and checked out that story, and you commented back and forth to me, and I really appreciate some of the feedback I got from some of you guys when it came to structure or when it came to discussing with me sometimes about different ideas, how you would execute this over top of this. Very kind. I really appreciate you guys that checked out that story to let me know some of the things you thought, since it was a very pulp-like 30-page long story. But I will tell you, I went over that short story that was 30 pages long at least 6 or 7 times. That was a lot of work. That's rereading 30 pages over and over again. That's almost like 300 pages of reading the same thing that I wrote, which after a while you get sick of reading that. If you get sick of formulas in Goosebumps books that you read over and over again, which happens to me sometimes when I used to get burnt out a lot over the last couple of years, you know, that happens when you're reading your own writing over and over and over again. At some point you miss, and your brain says, hey, you put that word in there that's actually non-existent, it's not there right now, and you don't even realize it. There is a lot of that in this book. You can tell, in my personal opinion, as someone who's been into writing for like over 10 years, not consistently, but enough to know what I'm seeing when I see something, especially in a self-published book. Not that there's anything wrong with self-published books, once again. Not that Jose did anything wrong, it's just, with the amount of errors in this entire book, it's kind of ridiculous. I really do think that, and I think that it should have been gone over at least 4 or 5 times, and they could have caught most of these issues. I really believe that. With that being said, I feel like I would pick up the Are You Afraid of the Dark book as well, because I just want to know some of the behind-the-scenes factoids about that series too. I loved that when I was a kid, that show, but I never knew much about it. And I still, to this day, I don't know much about it. So I would like to pick up that companion at some point too. So Jose, hopefully my critiquing so far, I hope it doesn't harm you or your reputation or anything like that. It's just, you know, I want to pick up that companion as well, just out of my own curiosity as a fan. Anyway, moving back to the book, though. Imagine if I took my opinions on the episodes, or the books, and reviewed them, and published that for people. I feel like, and you guys know how I am with like Patreon and stuff, I don't think my content has enough effort in it. Not criticizing anybody else who decides to make unedited videos or anything, just rambling on camera forever like I do. Not that Jose rambles in his write-ups for these reviews, for these stories, but for me, with my kind of style, my kind of traditional YouTube feel of just not putting in any effort in post-production of my videos, which I hold firm to. I think it's the best way to keep my particular videos, but that is another story. I think that, me personally, I find it difficult to feel like I should have to pay for anybody's opinion on anything. I'm just very much like that. I'm like that when it comes to college. I'm like that with a lot of things in my life. I don't support anybody on Patreon. I don't. I'm sorry. Some companies need it. Now, Kickstarter's another thing. I've never done that, but I can understand why somebody would do that. And I understand Patreon, too, for the people who want to support their people that they want more content from. And I get that. I'm not criticizing anybody for that. But for me personally, when it comes to reviews of things, I'm not big on that. I don't think that I deserve somebody to donate money to me to get content for Goosebumps reviews and opinions. To me personally, I have never liked that for my style of content. For something like what Jose is doing, maybe you guys would like that more. You know, it's summarized. It's very much written in a way that has a lot of personality and flair to it, but it's written like a lot of MSN news articles. And if you're cool with that, if you're cool with like the snappy kind of Twitter way of writing things, that's very much how Jose Prendes brings himself to this project. If you like that, that's going to be your kind of thing. And if you're not a fan of that, you're probably going to be not into it. But for me, it's the fact that a companion piece to me would be, let's take an entire chapter and dedicate it to this story and probably spoil it. I feel like it's hard to have a companion piece of anything, whether it be MCU stuff, DCEU stuff, or Goosebumps, without spoiling the stuff, if it's truly a companion piece. But there's really only so much you can say. A lot of the episodes are like 20 minutes long, and these are broken down into, even the part 1 and part 2s have their own sections. There's not a whole lot to be said. And frankly, in my opinion, I'm a little surprised that Jose Prendes, it seems like he is a fan. Like, truly. Like, I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything. But I'm saying it seems like he's a fan, but he's a lot harsher than a lot of us are. In my channel, in my comment section, a lot of us that talk about this show, these books, all of this stuff. When this dude is reviewing these episodes, the things that he says about some of these episodes, personally, I think are unfair sometimes, depending on what we're talking about. And the ones that I think truly should be trashed, like Perfect School, he kind of defends a little bit, which is fine. Again, everybody has their taste. That's what I love about Goosebumps and I love about the community. Everybody can have their opinions and everybody can fit into doing what they want to do, and there's never really any arguments or disputes, unless it's like a random, pardon the word because it's Goosebumps and we're talking about monsters, troll out there. And that is what it is, you know, but it surprised me how anybody who loves Goosebumps, or just loves anything, I don't care what fan base we're talking about, it surprises me when somebody tells me they're a really big fan of something and they tear the stuff apart critically. It really surprises me. But on the other hand, and I've said this before with you guys, for something that you're truly passionate about, and something that you truly love, there's nothing wrong with finding issues in and acknowledging those issues. You can appreciate something. I love Batman and Robin, the old George Clooney Batman film with Chris O'Donnell playing Robin. I have always been a fan of that film. It was made to sell toys to kids, and that's exactly what it did. This is at a time, and even though 89 and Batman Returns are really, really good films, in my opinion, Tim Burton's absolute best films, in my opinion, even though those are clearly a target audience for everybody, and then forever headed into that Joel Schumacher more for kids area, and then Batman and Robin went even more into that area because of studios and Joel and everybody else making toys. You know, the stuff that happened there, they were clearly making something for kids, in my opinion. And for what it is, and all the puns and all the things, I loved it as a kid. As a child, every person I've ever shown this to when I was a kid loved the film. My cousins that I grew up around so much, back when my parents divorced, they loved Batman and Robin. We all loved that movie. It was great for kids. And I think today, you could make the argument, if your kid has never seen Batman and Robin, I kind of want to test this with my nieces and nephews in the future, when I get to hang around with them sometime. I want to show them this movie, Batman and Robin, and see what they do. Just to see what they do. Just to see how they react. Because they haven't been exposed to, like, Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, the more serious, dark, sometimes we have to kill people Batman, you know? I know I'm on a complete tangent somewhere else in the universe, way far away from this book, but I really am trying to draw it back to the point of, I would be curious, I'm so shocked and curious how people can love something so much and really seem to me on the outside to not like it that much. That's just me. I'm not criticizing Jose. It's just a little thing I noticed while I was reading this that I'm curious about. But I want to tell you, I enjoyed a lot of the stuff in here, mainly with the series mythology stuff. A lot of that series mythology section is really what makes those review sections for me personally. I think Goosebumps Completionist said this in his review as well as when I watched it a couple of days ago. I didn't watch the whole thing because I wanted to skip some of the stuff I wanted to know about, like the interviews. But, sorry, dude. Sorry, Completionist. Love you, man. But when I was reading through this, and I got to the series mythology stuff, a lot of that is just like, hey, this actor or actress appeared in this episode over here, or hey, this is their final time they ever worked on Goosebumps as far as we know, or hey, they had an uncredited role. And then you have other parts of trivia, right? Like the directors, the writers, all that. This is the last time Dan Angel did this, or Rick Drew did that. You get a lot of that. Some of the trivia is way more interesting sometimes. That's my personal opinion. I don't have any of it stored in my brain off the top of my head. I've been reading this a little bit over the weekend. Just, parts here and there. I had kind of a busy weekend, and then, I read some stuff for Monday. I did a lot of ranking videos yesterday on Valentine's Day. By the way, I hope you had a great Valentine's Day, just so you know. Love you guys. You're great people. Great community. But after all of these reviews, the 74 reviews we have, we get into interviews, and I really want to go to that section really quick and kind of cover all the names that are interviewed for this book, because I think that's really what made this book for me, and frankly, it brought up my opinion of this book very much. Very much so. I think if you're going to pick up this book, for the 215 pages you get here, and I don't remember how much I paid for it, maybe 15, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, I don't remember what it was. It is on Amazon, in case you want to check it out still. It being self-published, my books, my old poetry books that I used to write back in the day, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, I first started dating my wife. I'm a self-published poet. I don't really write it anymore, doesn't make any money, but I did about 8 or 10 books, and I would self-publish them on Amazon. And I know the feeling of the quality of paper and the quality of these kind of like kind of suede feeling covers when I see them. I can go to a Goodwill and I can spot every self-published book typically when I go to those shelves at the book section. Anyway, not a slant on self-published. I'm a self-published writer too, but but I know it when I see it. Anyway, you go to the actual Talking Bumps section. These are the names of all of these interviews that are done here. I do want to talk about some of this information just a little bit that I thought were fascinating stuff. You have 5 interviews here. Cathal Dodd, who voiced Slappy. I learned a lot of stuff about Cathal Dodd. This is like a 5-page interview, not even that, maybe 4 pages at maximum. Did you know Cathal Dodd also played Wolverine on X-Men animated series? The original one from the 90s? I never knew that. That's brand new information to me that I had never heard of before. I don't know how that hadn't been brought to my attention. We're talking about Cathal Dodd, who took over for Slappy in Night of the Living Dummy 3, which is my favorite episode of all time. Or 2-parter, whatever. What in the world? Slappy is played by Wolverine. It doesn't even process to me. When I read that, I thought, this dude's messing with me. Like, this is fake. No, it's real. It's totally real. I looked into it as soon as I finished the book a little bit ago, and it's 1000% real. All right, the next interview is with Rick Drew, one of the writers, one of the head writers of the show. Really cool stuff about him. I liked a lot of his stories that he gave. That's about 6 pages long. Brian R.R. Hebb, I believe, is the photographer, I believe? Yeah, director of photography, and he did a little bit of directing himself. That was pretty cool. I didn't realize a lot of the stories that he told. He gave some information, like, for example, a lot of the half-hour episodes were shot in like 5 days, sometimes 4 days, you know? The 2-parter, hour-long episodes were shot in like maximum 10 days. They never really went beyond that, from what I understand. Of course, you have post-production and stuff you have to do after that. I assume that could last up to, color correction and everything else at that time. I assume that could have went quite a while, maybe a couple of weeks, the kind of way that Goosebumps worked on things. But man, this dude did so much work as director of photography, and a director himself, doing things like The Headless Ghost, which he hated. He said it was such a mess. He didn't get to edit it too, so he was pretty upset about that. It explains why I feel the way I feel about the Headless Ghost episode compared to like the original book. And that's wild. All right, Steve Levitan, I'm not really sure how to say his name. He was a producer, I believe. And the stuff about like how he picked out, Billy and Dan for the show, that was cool. I liked a lot of the stuff that he talked about with certain things. It was interesting. It was very much producer talk. Like, it felt like I was listening to Malika Cod talk about Halloween. And, it is what it is. It's producer talk. But he wasn't, like, irritating. He wasn't annoying. He wasn't political or anything like that. Which, by the way, this is another thing, too. I feel like if anybody wrote this book now in 2023, Jose Prendez, not saying him, but if somebody else had written a companion Goosebumps book, and it felt the way a lot of this book is written, like that kind of snappy way of writing this thing. Very article-like, like I said. I feel like everybody else would have injected politics into this somewhere along the line. They would have said that somebody made a snappy comment in an episode and that was misogynistic or something. I feel like that's what would have happened if somebody else had written this. Jose Prendez, to his credit, did not ever go there. I don't care what his affiliation is with anything. I'm just really glad that I got to read something that's self-published, that's Goosebumps and childhood related, that is not like that. Thank you, Jose. That's a great compliment from me, and I think from a lot of people, too, that feel the way I feel about that. Anyway, the final interview here, well, I guess not the final interview. There's technically 6 interviews, but the final one here of people involved with the show was Ron Oliver. Yeah, Ron Oliver did interviews for this, and of course he apparently did interviews for the Are You Afraid of the Dark book as well that Jose Prendez had written. And Ron Oliver's stories about the behind-the-scenes stuff on some of the stuff, like when they were going to film, Say Cheese and Die Again. I think Completionist mentioned this too. It seemed like everybody immediately thought this was a bad idea. Like the first story is about a camera, and then this one, it's like, you know, that one predicts horrible tragedies happening. This one, the kid gets fatter and fatter. And like he said, I was surprised Ron Oliver went here. You can't do that story nowadays, because it's incorrect. That was a shocking interview from Ron Oliver. I really liked a lot of the stuff I learned there. I don't want to tell you too much. I like to give a little snippet here and there of some of the stuff that I heard from these guys. Great interviews. Really liked them. Jose Prendez, that really, again, that brought this book up for me when it comes to rating it at the end of the review. That really brought this book up to me and really made this book worthwhile, because a lot of the stuff we found out were fascinating. I think Rick Drew also, now that I'm thinking about it, I think he also talked about Night of the Living Dummy 2, the episode. And I think he mentioned that Bill and Dan thought that it would be better to make that because it had a better basis, but then again, no one ever addressed the fact of why not just call it Dummy 1, you know, Night of the Living Dummy. Just why not call it that? You did that with Deep Trouble Part 1 and Part 2 4 years later, 3 years later, whatever. Why not just do the same thing? You know, just that story was basically nothing like Deep Trouble 1 and 2, and it kind of combined both at the same time. You didn't call it Deep Trouble 1 and 2. You could have done that with Dummy. It wouldn't have been a big deal. But, like I said, I really, really, really enjoyed the interviews. But the final interview in here, one day I picked up this book a while back, maybe 2 months ago. I've had this book in my collection for about a year and a half, somewhere in there. I think I bought it right around the time that I moved into this house with my wife. And I bought it, it came in the mail, I hadn't opened the book, I wanted to kind of keep saving it off, and here I am at the end of my reviews, pretty much. I picked it up, and maybe 2 months ago, and just kind of casually flipped through it, just to kind of see some of the random things in it, see if it had pictures or anything. By the way, there's not really any pictures in it. But then I got to one part, and I just randomly see Zack Baby TV. And I was like, what? It was in the very back of the book. It's like the last page of the book, one of the last pages. And it was Zack Baby TV in front of his collection, you know? And I was like, is he in this? Now, as you know, Zack Baby TV has kind of moved away from Goosebumps. I think he sold most, if not all, of his collection. I think it was most of the collection, though. He was a big Are You Afraid of the Dark collector on YouTube as well. And, you know, before I started doing my videos, he and GoosebumpsFan, Bjorn, as he's known by, are the two big influences that really found me in the community in recent years, in the last 4 years. Technically 5, because I started watching their channels back when I was reading the books before I started making reviews for the channel. If it weren't for those two guys, Zack Baby TV, GoosebumpsFan, I probably never would have done this because I loved their content. I loved so much. I probably would have went straight into horror movie reviews, which I don't think a lot of those that I do are that great, but I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to match up with my boy Goosebumps Completionist, who again has another channel called Franchise Horror Reviews, and it's fantastic. I love that channel. I've been watching it to death, dude. It's one of those channels like Stranger Grayson, which is Grayson the Goosebumps Kid's other channel. Their videos, dude, both of them, I love them, and I watch them so much. I watch them more than I watch Goosebumps content now. But anyway, getting back to Zack Baby TV, if it had not been for he and GoosebumpsFan, you probably wouldn't see me sitting right here in front of you guys doing these videos on Goosebumps. It probably wouldn't have happened. And I love both of those guys. And as you know, Zack Baby TV, has kind of gone away from Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark. He kind of moved into creepypasta, kind of Mr. Nightmare, if you're familiar with his channel. Fantastic channel. Fantastic channel. Zack Baby TV renamed his channel to, like, I think it's Campfire Tales. And every once in a while, he'll post one that's like, you know, I'm an officer and I experienced a Wendigo attack in the woods. And I'll watch that stuff. I really like it. I think Zack Baby TV, or Zechariah, is his name in the book. In this book, that's what they keep calling him. I personally think that his content now is better than his Goosebumps content. That's a very hot take, I think, for this community, and for a lot of you guys. If you haven't listened to some of his voiceover work, I like good creepypasta stories, but they are very hard to come by. They are very hard to come by. No offense to Reddit and No Sleep, but it's hard to find No Sleep stories that I really like. Now, there's a lot of good ones out there, and a lot of mediocre ones with really bad endings or really horrible twists. Creepypasta and No Sleep can be very much like how Goosebumps can be. And I think that's why there for a while I tried to review some of the stories from the internet, because they have a lot of the same issues. But let me tell you this. I think Zack Baby TV's new content with the Campfire Tales stuff is better than the original stuff. Even though I love all of it. I really do love all of it. The other week, before I read this book, I started watching some of his old videos. His Goosebumps OG62 ranking. I listened to his reviews of the OG62. It's like reviewed in like 20 minutes or something, or 15 minutes. He goes through all the books and like, this one sucks, this one's good. I listened to his top 10 and top worst. All of it. I love the dude's content. To see this guy make it so far now that he's in this is shocking to me. That was awesome. I was really glad about that, and I think it's before his channel kind of changed into Campfire Tales. I believe this came out again in 2018, 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. That was weird, seeing my boy Zack Baby TV in another book, in a Goosebumps-related book, too. But he's basically interviewed here to possibly being the biggest U.S. collector, possibly. He talks about some of the things he doesn't have, mainly just one particular item he wants to get to finalize the collection. I don't know if he ever got it, though. I always wanted to know. I don't think he did, but maybe he did. Sorry, I thought I saw something outside in the next door neighbor's yard. That was weird. It looked like the fence had collapsed or something. I don't know, but it didn't. It's still there. I'm nuts. I'm really thirsty today. What else was there I wanted to cover with the Zack Baby TV section? Oh, he covers like what his top fives are for a lot of things in this. Episodes, books. Not so much monsters, but, you know, he kind of covers that a little bit, too, pretty much with that. Talks about his love for Attack of the Mutant. He talks about, like, his beginning of his collecting days and what got him into that. And I thought that was cool. I didn't know a lot of that about Zack Baby TV or Campfire Tales, whatever you'd like to refer to him as. But Zack is a cool guy. And I will tell you, Jose Prendez doing things like that and adding Zack into the book, that was cool. I loved that a lot. I thought that was really cool, man. Anyway, I might seem a little nitpicky about this video, but it mainly comes down to, again, some of the things I've said about publishing reviews, making money off of opinions. There's nothing entirely wrong with that if there's an audience for it. Clearly there is. There's a lot of guys who bought this book and reviewed it, even here on YouTube, like me and Completionist. It seems like there's quite a few reviews on Amazon, from what I can tell. More power to you, Jose. Mean that. I really mean that, dude. Love you. More power to you. If you can make money off your opinions, you do it. It's just like I said, with me and like Patreon and stuff, some of you have asked me to start that in the past. My personal opinions, not Jose's, not anybody's, my personal opinions, I don't think are worth money. Not for me. Not the things coming out of this brain and this mouth, I don't think they're worth money. Not that I disagree with myself, but I'm too narcissistic for that. But I don't think it's worth the money. I don't think I want somebody to donate $5 for my mouth to be able to talk about something. Instead, I feel like I should find, you know, passion in my content, in what I want to make, or what I want to review, or what I'm truly reacting to that I'm talking about, especially with my horror movie channel, Strange Michael, where I use a lot of foul language, by the way. So be careful if you go to that channel. I do have a sailor's mouth. Anyway, this book, again, that first like 150 pages of this 215 book, I'm not entirely with. Just because of the review thing, the trivia stuff is really good for the series mythology sections. I like having kind of on hand where I can open this book and see like the 4 main actors and actresses in the actual episode. That stuff is nice. And again, reading about some of these experiences with Jose and his daughter or daughters, Plural kids, I know he has at least 2 according to what it said in the book. That stuff can be nice most of the time, but it kind of falls flat. I think reading the same type of snappily written reviews for stuff, that gets tiresome to me. I'm the kind of dude that I don't read articles just because I don't really connect to that. However, these article-like stories and reviews are Goosebumps related, so I was curious. I wanted to get in there and really observe what Jose had to say, and I was kind of surprised again with how some of the stuff he critiques in a way that surprises me. Just as a fan coming from another fan, it kind of surprises me sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That can be cool, and that can be helpful. That can make you think sometimes. So, good on you, Jose. Anyway, so with all that being said, I really love the interview portions of this. In the last, I think it's the last 30, 40 pages of the book, last 50, that stuff's really good. But overall, when it comes to Viewer Beware, the Goosebumps TV companion by Jose Prendes, do I recommend the book? If you're a big collector, if you love Goosebumps, if you love mainly the TV show, if that was really your place that you grew up on, maybe there's a lot of episodes you haven't seen, be weary of this. Buy it for your collection, but at least try to watch all the episodes before you go into this, because he does go into spoiler territory, as a companion should. And I think I really enjoy it. As a self-published read, it's really good. I wish a lot of the stuff had been revised again for the formatting issues, all the typos. That's a big problem, in my opinion. To pay money for something like that, that's a little debatable, in my opinion. That's a little bit of a discussion that needs to be had. But that's just future criticism from me. This is a book that came out quite a while back, like 5 years ago, possibly. So that's hindsight, So that means nothing basically now, because this is already in print. But anyway, Jose did a good job. I think the organization of this is good. I like the organization of reviewing all 74 episodes, doing the different things with that. But the interviews are really what I think are worth getting this book for. I think that there's a lot of meat on the bones of those 5 and 10 page interviews at the end of this book. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Jose Prendes, check this book out. Not him, he already wrote it, but for you guys out there who are big collectors like myself, you love Goosebumps TV show or something, pick this up. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, mainly about the show, not really a whole lot of book talk. But that's really all I have to say. Have you read the Viewer Beware, the Goosebumps TV companion? I cannot get the title right, dude. I keep trying to memorize it, and I cannot do it mentally. Have you read this? What did you think about this awesome read? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comment section down below. With all the complaints and nitpicks I have, this is a fairly, I hope that this comes across as a positive review, because I had a good time with a lot of it. If I had to rate this one on a 5-star basis, I would give the TV companion a 3 out of 5 stars, but it's a high 3. It's close to a 4. If there was a few more interviews, or if there were more complex trivia things, which, he tries. There's not really a whole lot of trivia to talk about, Frankly, there's just not. But with the interviews and stuff, that made this book a lot better, in my opinion. It would have just been a bland 3 out of 5 for me, but all of the stuff in the back of this book, really to me, is what puts it up almost at a 4. For what it is, what the goal was to make this book by Jose, I think it's really entertaining in that final third of the book. Everything else kind of depends on your taste and how you feel. If you love reading articles and kind of reviews and that kind of thing, different opinions, this is going to throw you for a loop on some of his opinions about a lot of these episodes. So if you like controversy, check it out. You might like that too. But anyway, really good job, Jose. Really good job with a lot of this book. Really good job with the interviews, mainly in my opinion. Have you guys read this book? What do you think about it? I'd love to hear what all of you have to say down in the comment section down below. Please let me know if you've read the book. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And again, if you're a big collector, pick it up. Pretty cool read. Has some cool stuff, some really good information that we had never heard in the Goosebumps community. A lot of the stuff, the urban legends about Dummy 1, the episode, a lot of that's cleared up here by people who actually wrote and directed and worked on these episodes. So that's pretty fun. I like that a lot. Anyway, have you guys read the book? What do you think? Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Once again, thank you for watching, guys. Again, I hope, Jose, if you listen to this review, I hope that I didn't come across mean or anything. Having a bad day a little bit, just in a gruff mood. But I hope that you understand I enjoyed this book, and I do recommend the book to the right people. Anyway, thank you, guys. God bless you all. Goodbye.